All right. So last week we talked about doing three-dimensional roofs. And just like last week, it's going to be very similar, but the idea is that if you have time, it just really helps to add, as many 3D things as you can. At least that's my take on everything. Uh, so with that, I think we're going to get into materials themselves next week, like actually applying textures and all that kind of stuff. But I do have this inside of our basic material set, and actually just take another step back. Rebecca and I have really been starting to focus on materials again. We're going to work with Mitch on getting materials either removed that he doesn't want to see or coordinated with ones that he does, and really trying to hone in on uh, creating a complete collaborative material library that we can use that obviously will continue to grow as we create things. So I'll update you guys more on that later, but it's something that Rebecca and I are focusing on with Mitch, and then after we do materials, we'll probably do landscaping and vegetation and all that kind of stuff and do something similar. So anyway, with that, I do have this clad siding white right here. And so in a pinch or when you're designing, I mean, it's a great material just to show, siding, and it works fine from a design standpoint. So you can see, you can apply the material where you want and work that way. But once you do that, uh, again, if you have time, and ideally you would go back and create the 3D siding on here. Now, obviously, this particular architecture would not use it, but kind of irrelevant for our discussion. We're going to create it and just to show you how to build it on this model, even though we won't keep it moving forward, but the idea is to show you how to do it. So, like everything else, I have a file called block elevations siding, and just to pull it up, let me see here, we have live on the M Drive library SketchUp, then our library collections, we have right here this block elevation siding. So that's where I'm pulling everything from. So for the most part, we're really going to use this right here, which is just a profile of siding that was actually made from a CAD file of actually built siding and all that kind of stuff. So it's fairly accurate, and as you can imagine, we're going to use this with a push, pull, and or follow me command. But I also have these over here if you ever need to do more like shingle style kind of stuff. And we'll talk a little bit about this towards the end. And we're going to start here. So there's two pieces to this, and really the only reason why I have it is the very bottom piece. From a technical standpoint of the way this thing's put together, the very beginning is slightly different, and so it has this base piece, and ultimately you would just grab these, put them together, and I'm actually going to explode it, and then you can erase this line, and now you have a complete thing. But the reason why I left them separate is depending on how high your wall is, you can always copy this up, although I have this as pretty tall to begin with. And again, do the same thing, just explode this and erase lines so that you can see you can make a really tall wall. So that's just kind of why they're separate pieces right now. So I'm just going to grab these two, copy them, and we will bring them into our model. And I'm going to paste them in here. And for this particular model, I'm going to only do, say, this upper tower or the upper second floor piece. And so I'm going to put a piece of trim. I'm going to make this pretty simple. Let's go, say, 8 feet by 2 inches. And I'm just going to put it in this corner, and I'm just going to make it even with our balcony here. And all this is really going to do is give us a stopping point so that we don't have to put the um, siding all the way down to the ground. And honestly, most times we really do just do siding like on the second floor or something very specific like that. So now we have a piece of trim that we can put all this stuff with. In fact, I'm just going to cut this, go into my trim piece, and then paste it inside of here, just so I'm dealing with inside the trim, if that makes sense. And in reality, this is going to be, like I said, a pretty quick, easy thing, because I'm just going to show you here, but you're going to be able to replicate it on any other piece, because this one area is going to show you everything you really need to know. So again, I just put those two together, I'm exploding it, and then erasing out the little bit of pieces that I need to, including, I'm going to turn my model back on and just draw a line across here, which now allows, didn't quite hit, I guess, just cutting the height that I need. So we don't know why I did that. We'll just draw a line back down. There we go. Oops. And just like we did with the trim, we're just going to give a follow me command and wrap this thing around. So all I'm doing is follow me. So you see that I drew this rectangle here, and so it's just going to follow around the rectangle, hitting F for follow me, and there we have it. And I'm going to reverse faces and turn it into a group. So that's the easy part. The slightly more difficult part will be, cutting out the windows and stuff. But again, this is where using solid tools really helps. So now that I have the siding actually drawn, I'm going to hide it for a second and turn my model on. And I want to cut the siding around my shutters here and my trim. So it's going to turn this. So if you see what I'm doing here, I'll do it again on this other window. I'm just drawing a box that goes right around it, and including the trim. But if you see, my trim is slightly proud of the shutter, so I'm just going to slide this back and erase the line. And what this is going to allow me to do is I can make some groups here, and that the size really doesn't matter. You just want to be able to cut through the siding. So if I unhide, you see my siding comes back on. I select what I like to call my cutting box, and using the subtract tool, which one is it? This one right here, subtracting the window box, and then my siding was telling me it's not a solid, so using my solid inspector, it's telling me there's a stray edge somewhere, so I fix it and I should be good to go. And then subtract, there we go, and subtract. So just like that, there's my siding with windows cut out on the one side. Really quick, I'm actually going to undo, because I'm going to take this box, and since most of these windows, where you really gain speed is if you have a lot of windows that are the same. That really helps, obviously. If not, not a big deal. In fact, this one is slightly different, it looks like. Maybe I still have it in the right place. Yeah, that looks good. So I'm going to copy that one, and you'll see obviously my door is going to be slightly different, so I have to draw a second one. And I don't think there's any other windows, to be honest. It's pretty light second floor. Yeah, we don't have any windows in the back, so we're really just going to deal with these windows on the front and the side. So I'm just going to slide them forward, and then using my subtraction tool, I cut out all those windows. I'm going to hide my siding again and do the same thing for the door. just going to draw a quick outline of the door, and then I can pull it back. It doesn't really matter, just some dimension, and forward some dimension, turning it into a group. Unhide the siding and subtract from the siding. And there you have it. So just like that, I mean, that's all it is us putting siding on. So to me, this is adding a huge level of detail to a house, especially when you get into renders. And it really doesn't take that much time to do. Certain things like where the railing, say, hits the wall, I'm not going to worry about cutting that out of my siding. I'm okay with that. You know, maybe there's certain areas like these lights I'm going to want to pull out a little bit, and I'm going to do this by going into the component, grabbing everything and sliding the component out, say, an inch, and then I'm going to edit this piece of base and pull it back in an inch, and that allows all of the lights to be correctly placed. So it's just a quick way of doing every light very easily, editing the component itself versus grabbing the light and pulling it out like individually, if that makes sense. Doing the round tower would be exactly the same, no different. You're just going to do the follow me around a circle and then cut out, creating whatever shapes you need to cut out. Like I said, this one's pretty straightforward. There's not really a whole lot to talk about from the siding perspective. Now, this is siding with doing a mitered corner, meaning this corner right here, the siding would essentially be cut on a 45 and mitered together. Or you can get into, let me pull this up, corner boards, and we can quickly talk about corner boards. So I'm going to grab this one right here, I'm going to copy it, come into my siding, I'm going to paste it in, I'm going to hide this, and throw this onto my corner. And I'm just going to pull this up to my soffit and unhide. And now you have a corner board. And I created these corner boards to be especially a little bit thicker. So what's nice is you don't actually have to cut the corner out of the mitered corner off of the siding. This basically just hides it, so that if you ever needed to go back and forth between doing to show a client corner boards versus non-corner boards, you would be able to have that. I think I can push this in a little bit, even a ½ inch. It would be nice just to give a little bit of reveal to the trim, letting the trim be a little bit proud of the corner board. I think that just kind of looks a little nicer. And then here you would just copy it around, you know, wherever you needed to. Let's finish copying the other ones. In fact, here, let's give myself a midpoint. And I'll do a rotation copy of 180 degrees, and there you go. Yeah, so that's you know, adding in corner boards. The door here obviously would probably get some sort of corner board trim. So maybe we'll pull this guy up. Going back to our discussion on adding in heads and sills for windows, you would just follow that same technique, but I'll add this in, and that one actually fits nice. But since we're going to have corner boards on the door, I need to pull this out a little bit further. So I'm going to pull this out, I think 4 inches is what I need, and you'll see why in a second. So now going back to here, that's what these guys are. So just like I've talked about on the head or the sills, where I have this little piece that juts out, which allows, when I paint this, that you see the paint going underneath the head of the door, so that if this were to be, say, a stone or something like that, I was going to throw this wood in just to show that you see the material actually slide back. We had that discussion for the other piece. That's really what these edges are, and just keeping them thin for modeling sake, that it's showing the siding kind of sliding back. And just like doing the actual corner boards, we're just going to push pull this up to here, and now you can see when this goes all the way up why I pulled the head out a little bit, you know, so that there's room for the corner of the door to be received. I forgot this is why we didn't do heads up here. Maybe I'll pull the roof up a little bit later. But so this is how you can really start trimming out the siding to make it look really nice, especially if and when you have to paint the siding. Let me grab my materials, and I'm going to grab some. Where do I have it? Here we go. Infinity Colors. So I'm just going to grab a nice Key West blue and paint it that real quick. And so now you can see that the corner boards being white will really pop against that color, which is really nice. You know, the nice thing with doing the 3D version versus a material like the way I started off with, showing you just a flat texture that you can paint on. Now, I painted this at the surface level. If you guys remember talking about surface level versus group level, here I'm going to paint it at the group level so that if you ever need to come in and change to show different options of material. Why isn't this selected? Here we go. At the surface or at the group level, it's easy just to keep painting different colors to show client, you know, what this would look like in really any kind of color that you want to. So it's all in just how you need or want to work kind of thing. So I know, Leron, you were excited about this. Is this answering your questions, showing you how I do it at least, and how it can be done quickly? Yeah, and it's crazy, like for how much, in my opinion, the amount of detail that it adds to the ratio of time that it takes to make it is pretty minimal. I mean, you saw me do this whole second floor in real time was probably what, like 7-8 minutes, you know, if that. You know, we've only been talking for, you know, 17 minutes. So, and again, just that level of detail, I think, just looks fantastic in my opinion. To me, it looks way better than grabbing this thing and throwing it on. And again, it's all knowing what you need and want to model and what your time frame is, because while I'm designing, I absolutely use this texture without a doubt, because making and remaking again 3D siding on a house while you're designing just doesn't make any sense. But the downfall is I currently only have this in white, and what I typically do, for those of you that have Photoshop on your computer while you're working, you can always edit this material in Photoshop. Let's take a second to open. Here we go. And you know, do some sort of color overlay or whatever. Just grab, see if I can find a decent blue or something. Do something like that. And if I layer, flatten, and if I save, this automatically will update my model, which is kind of nice. You know, so I purposely only keep a white version just because it's easy enough for me to go in and edit to the color that I need versus trying to create every possible color. But yeah, so that's how I use the 2D siding when I need to, when I'm designing. You know, if you already have a color in mind. If not, the white one usually works well as a placeholder, and it shows the horizontality of the siding when you're working. Undo that and get rid of this real quick. So one other thing, which I guess is just kind of a tangent to adding siding in, really if we're just talking about adding wall details in. I think I've shown you guys this one before, where I use this to add, say a recess in trellis detail or whatever. But Quoins, I don't think we've talked about Quoins before. Not that we use them a ton, but they do appear every now and then. And so this is really a similar kind of idea to doing siding. And I have these built as, and each one of these is a component. So if you change one, it changes the others. So it's just one of the things to be aware of. And I have different kinds, like this one is trying to get a good view. Like this, actually, let me go underneath. You can see that this is U-shaped that wraps around to do like a column or something. You can use something like this that is a corner, and if you need to pull a version aside in, what's kind of nice, let me pull this in, say 12 inches. I'm going to grab every other one, and then I'm going to mirror it by -1, and then rotate it. And just put it back in its proper place. And now I have, oops, I grabbed the wrong one there, but you see what I'm doing, where you can now have, mirroring coins and change the size to whatever you need. So that's how the coins work. And these would just grab Control C. I'm gonna bring them into here, and we'll place them back here. Just group them together to keep it easier. Rotate. And plopping them on the corner. And this obviously would not be that far out. Just pull it in some. Pull this one in a little bit. Do something like that. And you can see that these have essentially grout lines already built into it, so if you just use those, then you should be good as far as copying up and down or whatever. And just like that, you can add in some coins, and it adds a really nice detail. So a lot of these wall details can actually be pretty simple. And so if you ever come across coins, which again are very rare these days, but we do them, just know that they are there. And just to let you know, that is in blocks, elevations, wall details, this one here. So those are the two that we're using right now. Yeah, so like I said, I think pretty straightforward class. Any questions on anything we've done? Everything makes sense? I mean, it should be, because a lot of what we're doing now is really just building off of concepts we've already talked about and just doing the same thing over and over, just in different ways. So yeah, anyway, I think that's it, unless you guys have anything else you want to talk about. I mean, we can either finish now, or we got another 20 minutes or so if there's... Yeah, and I'll show you guys, Cassini was asking about topography, and I'll show you guys coming up, unless there's anything specific you want to know right now. But we will be doing probably 2, maybe 3 classes on sites themselves, including topography and the various different ways that you can do it, which is everything that Cassini and I talked about very, very briefly, but she seems to have picked it up pretty quickly, so hopefully it'll help you guys when we get to it. But as always, whenever you guys have questions specific to projects you're working on, feel free to let me know, and obviously I'll help you out. Yeah. Anything else? All right, you guys get to actually enjoy half hour of your lunch today. All right, bye guys.